Laura Giacomelli, it is a pleasure to have you here on the Business Owner Breakthrough today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here, Pete.
Yeah, we met through Regold and Dance Life and the Gold Mastermind and all of those kind of things. I do a lot of work. I'm very grateful to be in that grouping that calls sort of the entourage around Regold and all the different things, all the different stuff that he puts on. And I know you are one of the onboard coaches there and doing some stuff with Re as well. He's got such a great community of dance school owners, and wanted to invite a couple of you on to my podcast here, the Business Owner Breakthrough, and go through a few things that we talk about at some of the conferences, at some of the shows, and some of the different things. And when I reached out to you, it's like, yeah, I'd love to come on, and it was so great. And one of the things that we talk a lot about here on the Business Owner Breakthrough, the whole podcast series is all around communication, process, and accountability, what I call the CPA, and mastering your CPA, not your chartered professional accountancy, but your mastery as a business owner of communication throughout your business, process management throughout your business, and accountability throughout your business. And when we were chatting a few minutes ago, just before we hopped on, you're like, yeah, that's, I still want to get through some process and accountability stuff, because these are the things. And Laura, I know you work with a bunch of dance school owners as well, but these are the things that just keep coming back all the time, right? We're always honing these different pieces of our puzzles as business owners.
Well, I think because when you realize your business is like a living entity, right? It's always growing and changing, and you're keeping up with things that are happening in the world and what you're going to offer at your business. So like you have your systems and processes, but what I'm realizing is like your systems and processes before COVID are different, during COVID are different, post COVID are different, right now are different. Like, so I feel like the growth of it all and the evolution of it all is always changing. So it's a lot to keep up with. And it's what I'm having my issue with is putting the systems in place. Maybe if they're slightly changed or a little, a little different from the previous year and expectations, and now making sure my employees are at that expectation and following through with the updates, I guess I would say.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One of the lines that I've used over the years, and I haven't said it lately, and it just kind of came back when you were talking about that, was there are no perfect processes, but we're always trying to perfect them.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's
And
exactly what it is.
yeah, it's, I mean, unless you're literally building the same widget for 10 years in a row and you put it in the computer system and the robotic arm just drops the thing. But for most business owners, small business owners, because that's our audience here today, it's really things do revolve. And whether it's your kid from 3-year-old at day school to my kid at 23-year-old and off on his own, things evolve, and our businesses evolve too. And so, as leaders, what we need to be doing is continuously evolving these three things: communication, process management, and accountability. And I think the big thing when we look at the idea, because a lot of people who are business owners bootstrapped it. Like, it's like, okay, I'm just going to have to get the, like, I'm going to start those first 1 to 3 years. And I think a lot of listeners here can probably associate with this. That first 1 to 3 years, it's like, I just got to put in my time, get everything done. And we get habitualized into making all the decisions.
Right. And I think you get into that headspace where I have to do it all. It has to be me. And I'm just speaking as like a small business owner. I've been open for 13 years. And I feel like once I got into more upper education and putting myself in rooms where people are already at the spot where I wanted to be, that was when I started really listening to the people around me, being like, I shouldn't be doing cleaning the toilets and running payroll and teaching all the classes and doing all the marketing and the media. And like, you can't. The goal needs to be to get everything out of, at least in my mind, this is what my goal has been. I need to get it out of my mind, put it on paper, and then delegate it, right? Like that's to me, that's my goal. And I feel like that has been my goal a lot since, as you mentioned, I have a 3-year-old, right? And I want to make sure that my first baby, which is Libra Dance Studio, that baby's taken care of, right? So I can now be at home when I want to and take care of my new baby, which is Cole. that's always been like my long-term goal with Libra Dance Studio, is to not have to micromanage it. But I think you're right. I think a lot of us get in that mindset as small business owners. Well, it's mine. I have to do it. It's mine. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it. If my name's on it, it's going to be done the way I want it to be done. When in reality, 80%'s okay. Like the 80-20 rule, if it's 80% done and you can put that other 20% on it and buffer it up and make it really the standard that you want it to be, it's still got 80% done without you doing it, and that's, once you kind of, in my mind, once you switch to that mentality, I felt less overwhelmed. I felt very overwhelmed with my growth of the business until I started switching it up.
I mean, you're talking my language for sure. And when we look at these things, the other way of looking at that is going from detail to dashboard, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I use that language too. We're going from detail to dashboard. And when you start doing that, I use a lot of thinking tools with my coaching. And one of the thinking tools that I came up with quite some time ago now, it's called Assign It. And Assign It revolves around the 4 A's. And we've had podcasts on the 4 A's before, but the 4 A's are really this: assess it, address it, align it, and assign it. So when we're looking at taking those things, whatever it is, cleaning the toilet, you use cleaning the toilets. And by the way, I had a toilet cleaning business for 10 years. I've cleaned more toilets than you could ever imagine, but I didn't do it forever. Right? I did it when I had to, because I had to fill in for somebody or whatever the case is, but I had a team of people out there cleaning toilets every day. Like we service 300 restaurants and dance studios and all sorts of different places, right? So, when we look at this philosophy of taking something, whatever it may be, whether it's bookkeeping or whether it's, the next class that you don't actually want to run yourself, it doesn't matter. Or in your industry, I know that ordering costumes is a big piece.
And that's what we're in the middle of right now. It's ordering those costumes and that whole separate systems for that, so that I'm not drowning in ordering 800-900 costumes on my own. What do you do when all that inventory comes in? What is that process of them getting, like having all of that? We're literally in the thick of it right now. And 2 years ago, it was all me doing it. I think back and I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking doing all of that?
I can flip it back. I'm a shoe store owner, so we own shoe stores. Well, yesterday I was buying shoes for next fall and winter, even though it's only November as we're recording this. So we have to order out a year in advance. But earlier this year, I lost the person that's been doing that for the last 5 years, a key person in our organization. And before that, I did it. But I lost. His name was Brock, and in our accountability chart, that's a big hole to fill.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Because we had looked at sort of this assess it, address it, align it, and assign it. It's like assess it. Okay, well, we need somebody else to do this. Address it. What's involved in doing it? Align it. Who else on the accountability chart do we need? Or some people use the word organizational chart, but I prefer accountability chart because it means this person's accountable. And then assign it. Boom. That person is there. And so you need to have your process in place, because getting back to the idea of, do I need to micromanage or whatever the case is, all this idea, most of the people, Laura, I've owned Shootopia since 2010, so we're parallel there, 13 years for this business. I've had other businesses before, but when we look at this kind of thing, it's like, how do we set this up and who else can manage this and how do I feel comfortable? But 13 years later, it's not about, do I trust my team? Because hopefully you actually have people working 13 years later. When we talk about, well, I don't trust them to do it, because this is something that goes through owners' heads a lot, right? I don't think I trust them enough to get this done. That's why we feel as though the pressure of having to micromanage things and dig it, but the reality is, it's not that you don't trust the person. It's that you really don't trust the process.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like once talking about, say, costumes, when I have a process of how I order costumes, and to be honest, it starts in August, and I'm ordering. I don't even technically order them until October and November. I have 2 waves that I order. We have the company costumes that we order because they have to come in earlier for competitions. And then later we have the recital, and that's not until June. So we have a nice big buffer with that. I never wrote anything down or explained to my people exactly how I did it.
Exactly.
It's like, well, you measure them.
Yeah.
Well, how do you measure them?
Exactly. What does that mean?
Right. Like, this is how you measure their chest. You have to keep in mind it's October. They need these in June. How much are they going to grow? Right. So
Yes.
what are you adding? What are you subtracting? And it's different for each measurement, their chest, their waist, their hips.
Yeah.
And so when I would say measure, they don't know. Right.
Mm.
So now I literally went to every single, my senior teacher, and then my 3 staff members who run my office. And I said, everyone come here. And I pull a dancer out of the classroom. I said, this is how you measure this. This is how you measure this. This is how you measure this. This is their girth. And I said, and when you give me measurements, you give me their exact measurements, because some of them were adding, not adding. And then I was like, costumes were coming in and they're coming in wrong. They're too big. They're too small. And I think as business owners, in my mind, I'm like, well, that's money, because now I have to pay to return it and exchange it. And now we're going through all of that. And that's just costing the business mistakes and money and mistakes and money. And my original fear was like, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
I'll just do it. And then I was like, I think the more mature I got and comfortable and confident with owning my business, I said, no, I'm going to take time to train them. You have to take the time to train them. Like, I literally, and I did it last year, right? When we were measuring, and I did it again this year. I said, I know you all know how to do this, but here's your refresher. This is how you do this. This is how you do, and that's just one piece of the huge pie, but measuring 500 students a lot.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to be there every single day measuring 500 students, right? Like, I need my office staff to be able to handle that and send it to me via email at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
That's it. I don't need it. I don't need to do it.
Put it in the spreadsheet and away we go, right?
Exactly. And not feeling like I have to do it, so it's going to be right. Trusting them that I gave them the training, they have the skill, right? They can do it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Once I kind of figure out when I need to put those refreshers in.
Yeah.
I just had 400 costumes come in. It's like 450. And they tried them on last week and this week. I think I have 5 that I have to return.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Yeah.
5. And I'm like, out of 450, I'll take
so
that.
good.
I'll take that percentage.
For sure. Yeah, and especially when you're dealing with kids that are growing and all that other stuff. I mean,
exactly.
That's awesome.
And knowing that they have space and the older girls aren't going to grow as much, like all the little innuendos of it all. And I'm just like, wow, like, we actually did that. We handled that as a team, and I didn't have to do it all myself, which is the number one thing for me.
If we look at that process, when I look at honing process and process management and stuff like that, I don't know, you probably don't know, I'm a Kolbe certified coach as well. And Kolbe is sort of how you make decisions and all this sort of thing, and how you see things and how you want to communicate. And people communicate in different ways. And so, one of the things that I would suggest that you might do is, and if you may already be doing this, but when you're doing your training, like showing somebody how to measure, make sure it's recorded.
Oh, like via video? Oh.
Set up the tripod and you record yourself measuring somebody so they can physically see you doing and say, here's the difference between 32 inches and 32 and a half. Like, this is how the tape measure wraps around. You got to get it from this side because that's a half inch difference. Like, show, like, because some people are very visual, other people are audio.
Yes.
Other people they want to read it, right? Mm-hmm. So when you start building your process, in order to trust your process, which is kind of this idea, before you can align and assign your process and feel comfortable in trusting the process so that you can then assign it to somebody with confidence, they need to be able to receive it in a way that makes sense to them, because we have our own ways of making sense, but that doesn't mean it makes sense to them.
Right. Yeah. So from a teacher's standpoint, it totally makes sense, because when you're in a classroom and you're teaching 10 kids, you're going to have to say it 5 different ways to be able to reach them. You're going to have to say it. You're going to have to show it. You're going to have to show it from the side. You might have to actually physically touch them and say, this is your right foot. So I think maybe putting my teacher hat on as an employer too, to really help them. But I never even thought to record it.
Yes.
And we have a staff page on Facebook that it's like a private little page, and I can just say, like, here's your like next year, here's the video reminder, this is how we work it, so
So
that they
this
all like
is,
see it and get it.
we do the same, like, as we're talking about honing your process, this is one of the things, because every year you're going to have 500 or more to measure, and you may have new people that haven't been through it before.
Right.
So the idea here is you get it captured on video. And I'll go back to some history for me. I mean, I've captured some of this stuff years ago on video, and it has to be redone because it's we've changed it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's old video and all that sort of stuff. So that has to be redone. But if all I have to do is redo that one training video that, I don't know, 50 or 100 people have watched over the last year or two, once every couple of years, as opposed to having those 50 to 100 presentations to all those different people through
Right.
training over the course of those last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy standing in front of the camera on a tripod and going through that exercise once every 2 years to update that video. And that's a good use of my time. And the other thing is that, from a perspective of all of the team that you are now having as accountability partners in this particular task, they're getting the same message every time.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
exact same message every time.
Right. And there's no
And
miscommunication between whisper down the lane. I'll
nope,
tell the Tuesday person what Laura told me on Monday.
nope.
It's just seamless. Yeah.
So you put it into your rhythm of the videos. Like when it's time to measure, they all see that video again, and they take the 10 minutes to, properly measure, and that's just part of the rhythm of
Right.
the process that you have in making sure that you are. I mean, obviously it worked well this time, but you did it
Mm-hmm.
live this time. But if you
Right.
don't want to do it live or can't do it live next time,
Right. Right.
who
Totally.
knows? Maybe you're having another baby next time when this happens, and you're not going to be available to do that. Well,
Or maybe
you
I'm
know,
on vacation, Pete. Right.
whatever, and all of these different things, because life does take us away from our business, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the idea behind communication, because now we're communicating that process through video. And here's the other beautiful thing of all these different AIs and everything. Now you take that video, you transcribe it in something like Otter. It becomes a transcription. You take the Otter transcription, pop it into something like ChatGPT,
Yep.
and it does the whole description for you. And that description goes in alongside of the video, so that the people that want to watch it, watch it. The people that want to listen to it can listen to it. The people that want to read it can read it. And you've got it all with one video that
Right.
you have done, or whoever is doing, who is currently accountable, so that it can be cross-trained throughout your organization, and you can feel comfortable about process management within your business. So you're trusting the process, not having to feel as though you have to trust the person to know everything that's in your head.
Right. Right. I have another question about that.
Yeah.
This year so we're open 6 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
We're Monday through Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we have 3 studios in my facility. I have hundreds of kids coming in and out of the building. We're big at this point, and I'm blessed. But
Yes.
now it's like we have people in my front office.
Mm-hmm.
And one process that I'm struggling a little bit with is I have different people in the office each night.
Yeah.
We're an after school activity, and it's an awkward time. It's like 3 to 9 or 3 to 9:30
through supper and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not ideal for someone who has a family. It's just it's hard. It's a
I
hard
get it.
time. So I have an alumni who's in college right now. She does 3 of the days. She's fantastic because she grew up, has been to my studio. She understands when someone says, well, what's the recital? She's lived it, right? Her whole life.
Right.
So she gets it. My mom is my Monday night person. She's great. She's been with me since the beginning. And then I have another alumni who's there on Thursday nights. And she's been with me for years as well, since she's graduated. She's about 26, 27.
Yeah.
But now that we have so many people on each night, it's the transition of the tasks that had to be done maybe weren't finished. The next person has to pick up the ball and start running with it on Tuesday. And this year I did like a checklist. So when they go into the office, there's a log. And it says, these are the things within the first 20 minutes you need to do. Return phone calls, check the bathrooms, make sure the lobby's, good, just kind of like make sure the facility
basics.
Right, all that. And then throughout the night, there's like things you need to check off. And then as you lock up, these are the 5 things you need to handle, whether it's vacuuming the waiting room, making sure there's no sticky stuff on the chairs, just like, things like that.
Basic
But there,
maintenance.
exactly. But then there's also things that pop up like checking in the costume, which is what we're handling. We have, 30 or 40 people. We don't even know if they're doing recital yet because it's been, people haven't returned phone calls, haven't handed in paperwork, haven't returned emails, normal dealing with busy parents, right?
Yes.
So I have them write a log for the next person and leave it on the desk. But sometimes it's like getting lost in translation still, of, well, you only got through 1 through 8. I thought you got 1 through 10. Like there's just the communication between my people isn't as clear as I would like for it to be. And then it's them calling me, hey, Laura, did such and such get it done? I'm like, I wasn't even in the office on Tuesday. I was at home doing my own stuff, running payroll,
it's your day
right?
off, whatever.
So, or whatever it may be. And I wasn't in there. And my response is, well, you have to call whoever was in there and ask them where they were at with that project, or, if it was complete. I don't know if there's a better way of taking me out of the occasion so that system flows better. I thought that I set it the right way, but they're still coming to me saying, oh, she didn't do this, or I thought this was done. Is this my responsibility? That's where I'm getting a little lost right now.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways of looking at that, and there's some technologies there if you choose to use it. Some people do, some people don't. It's all good. Okay. But one of the things that we use, it's called Voxer. It's a voice message app. It's like a walkie-talkie, and we have a Voxer channel in amongst our management team. And so every day in the morning, there's the 3 priorities of what you're working on. And if there's any sort of stuff, like in this case, at night, I would say just send a Vox and say all is okay. And, or, this is what's left. You could do that kind of thing if you're a voice type person. If you're a checklist person, of course you can form up and curate your checklist a little bit better. The other way of doing it that we use for this is what I consider project management type stuff, as opposed to just, did the bathroom get cleaned? That's a checklist,
Right.
But we're talking about the continuing projects, not necessarily did I shut the lights off and did I, put the money in the safe and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
So the continuing projects ones should live on a different sort of board than the actual checklist.
Okay.
So
that's where
in my opinion,
right now it's front page and back page.
Yeah. So
which I was trying to simplify it, but it's not working.
Checklist is checklist. It's not project management. Project management is there's the list of 12 people that need to be contacted. How far did you get down it? That's not the daily checklist. So the daily checklist is the daily checklist. We sweep up, we wipe up, we do all these different things, and we lock the door, we open the door, all that kind of stuff. That's daily checklist. And you might have a weekly checklist too, where you're walking around the studio checking for lights and all the other stuff, and checklist type stuff, which are repeated, done the same way every single time. What we're talking about here is a little bit more project management, and project management of all those independent projects that kind of have a start and an end can live in a different file if you're paper-based, or we like to use a program called Trello, and Trello allows us to set up columns, and everybody's attached to the Trello board, and each project is its own card, and the card moves across to do, doing, and done. And you can really just set up columns that are to do, doing, and done, and then each one has its own card, and you build your card. You could have 15 cards there that are all in the to-do list. And like when you get back from your conference and you have 52 to-do lists, then you would write out all the 52s, but they're not in process yet. They're going to be in process sometime, but when you pull them into process, they become in process, and somebody's name gets put to that. Like in your case, it might be Laura, or in my case, you might assign Peter to it, or whoever, and whoever's little head is there, they're accountable for that process until they've assigned it to somebody else or moved it to the column that says done. And when it's done, it's done.
Nice.
So it's sort of,
and what was that
to do, doing, done
program again?
Yeah, it's called Trello. And other people will use one called Asana. I mean, there's a lot of different project management type style boards, but Trello is free I mean, we pay for an upgraded version, but it's free for anybody that wants to use it. And it's nice you can share to anybody who's on that Trello board, and they can see who's accountable and where everything's at. You can put up checklists. You can attach it to your Google Drive with other files and different things like spreadsheets and stuff like that if you choose to. There's a lot of different little things that you can do with that will help you in your process management.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was just I that for me is going to be the way to take me out of the occasion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the equation. Like I don't want them. Not that you can call me with questions. You can,
Sure.
but
Yeah, you're
but
still the owner,
but
right? Yeah.
right. But the communication between each other, I want that to be smoother, right? It's not. I don't want to necessarily be the middleman in every conversation. Well, what did she do yesterday? What did she not do? What So having something like that, I feel like would be would just completely like upgrade everything at the studio and the office.
Yeah. So if you put your lens on two different things, the one thing is the checklist of sort of what we do every single day, our opening checklist, clean the bathroom, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the other piece of the puzzle is a project management process board. Right. And that's going to be where are we standing with all this stuff. And we talked earlier about the term detail to dashboard. This is where you can be on the dashboard of this, but you can dig in if you happen to be on Trello and you want to know where any of these projects is lying. You go in and you're like, oh, they're on step number 7 and Judy's accountable for that. And that's great. Okay, so at least I know. Now I have the overall view, or as I would put it in dance school language, the view from the balcony instead of from the floor. I've got the overall view of the production happening here, but I'm not necessarily on the stage running the production.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the older we get, at least for me, the older I get as a business owner, the less I want to be on the stage dancing, the more I want to be in the balcony watching, right?
Yeah, and that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say like when I talk about Libra, I feel like I say she's my baby, but my baby's 13 now. Like there's things that a 13-year-old should be able to do by itself, right? That like to me, that's the goal as a business owner. It's like there's certain things that I should not have to baby her with. She should be able to function and move forward without me running it every single day. And I think it comes down to like the systems and processes, but I'll definitely have to look into that program because I was like, that's what I need. That I need something to just connect the dots there because they're looking at me to help connect the dots. And not that I don't want to help them when they need help, but I feel like that would just take a lot off my plate.
That's the whole point of our conversation here today, Laura, is to free you up, right? And if something like Trello it's a piece that can free you up, then the conversation is a good one. And, a lot of this stuff, you got into business 13 years ago because you have dreams of a better life.
Yeah.
Then whatever it was, and I don't know what you were doing before, but whatever it was before. But I can tell you almost every single person that gets into business for themselves has dreams of a better life. And if all you're doing is head down, working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, not getting home for supper because your business happens to be open through supper time, not having the opportunity to spend Saturdays with your young child and family and friends and whatever the case is, or not being able to take a little trip away because you want to take a trip away because you feel that you have to stick around, then, we got work to do, right?
Right.
And so the next piece of the puzzle is once that starts coming, it's like, oh, how much more freedom can I get when I start implementing some of this stuff? Because the freedom that you get, maybe you want to open another studio someday. Right. Maybe you want to start an entirely different business, or maybe you don't want to, or maybe you want to move to a different town, but still have this business as a great viable investment that you have that you're involved with as needed. There's so many different ways of looking at this as we get through here. And, my biggest thing that I see a lot of people when they get overwhelmed, overworked, feel as though, they just can't do it anymore. They want to sell their business because they just can't. It's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And it's usually not because they don't love the business. It's usually because they don't love the detail.
Yeah.
If they could get themselves out of the detail to the dashboard, they probably still want to be there.
Right. And I feel like too, I'm sure that's probably common in our industry. It's like people get into this because they love working with children. We love to teach, but I don't think we always understand the business side of it, right? Like I went to school, I have a BFA in dance. My biggest regret in life is not having a business degree. Yeah. Honestly, because I always knew I wanted to open a studio, but I never went for business classes, which is why, I do continuing education and things like that. But Yeah, I mean, I feel like the burnout comes from, I don't think necessarily from the teaching. I think it's from running the business, because it is a business. This is not, at least for me, this is not a hobby. This is
Yeah,
my livelihood. This is my
for
career.
sure. Yeah,
So I very much take it seriously in that way, right? And I run
yeah.
it that way.
Laura, I just reminded me here of one of the I like. I'm a image guy, and one of the cartoons that I had drawn up a while ago was, a dance school owner sitting at her desk with papers, all these papers, and she's in sort of the admin room, looking out at the dance floor, basically saying, do I really want to be in here, or do I want to be out there, right? And it's kind of like, these are the things. When you start getting your business going and running on rails, you should be able to choose where you truly want to be. And my framework around that's called love it or leave it. And, you should be able to love what you're doing and leave some of the other stuff. And if, for example, if bookkeeping isn't what you want to do, then you find somebody else to do the
Yep.
bookkeeping portion, right?
Can I
So
tell
that
you,
it gives you yourself.
I
Yeah.
just hired a bookkeeper, and I kick myself in the butt now that I have her. I'm like, why did it take
Yeah.
me 11 years
13
to
years.
hire
Yeah.
a
Whatever.
bookkeeper? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Not something I like doing, but I need to
Right.
know where my money's going, right? Like,
Yeah.
really know where my money's going.
For
So
sure.
it's
For
funny
sure.
because I feel, and I think probably listeners too, don't be scared to, um, you have to spend money to make money.
Yeah.
Early on, I think I was nervous to do that also. It's like hiring people costs, right? But in my mind,
Mm.
once I really thought about it, I'm like, well, if I can delegate this, then I can create something new over here. And the something new over here can generate money, right? And
Yeah.
maybe a portion of that can take care of that,
For
right? So
sure. For sure.
that's just another way to think about it too, not to be nervous about delegating and doing things like that, because in the end, it frees up your time to either create something new or have free time and do whatever you
Yeah.
want with your own family and your own self.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think we've had a great conversation here today, Laura. Thanks so much for taking part and
Thank you
being a
for having
part
me.
of the Business Owner Breakthrough. I'm so excited to see you again at one of the events down the road here, and look forward to chatting with you and watching your growth as a
Oh,
business owner. I
thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. Thank
All
you.
right. Make it a great day.
You too. Bye bye.